Statues of Robert Burns can be found throughout the world. For example, Estonia, the United States, Canada, New Zealand, Australia, and of course, Scotland, England, and Northern Ireland. There are at least two statues of Jean Armour and one bust. Also, figures from his poems, such as Luath and Caesar from the Trois Dogs, and a number of figures from the poems, such as Tam O'Shanter. And indeed, Highland Mary is also represented at Dunoon. Facial features of Robert Burns are best known from paintings by Alexander Naismith, by the engraving by John Bugo that appears in many of his books, also paintings by Peter Taylor, and an image produced by Archibald Skirving. The oldest known statue of Burns can be found in Camperdown, Australia. It was produced in 1830, and it was produced after the image by Peter Taylor. The vast majority of images, though, were those of Alexander Naismith, by which the public generally thought was a real image of Burns. The years leading up to the bicentennial of Burns's death in 1896 produced a large number of statues in cities all over Scotland and elsewhere. Marduk, of course, decided it must have a statue. In 1877, 21 models were produced by various artists for a public exhibition. The eventual winner was William Grant Stevenson, and his statue, now in the K Park, shows Burns with a notebook and a quill. And this has been found elsewhere in the world as well, particularly there's one in Wisconsin. The statue of Robert Burns at Eglinton Park near Cowinning was found in Perth by R. Clement Wilson, who was the owner of the old meat factory which used to be at the park. This at one point was stolen, but was found in the river and is now kept more securely. Marduk also has in the town centre statues of Robert Burns and John Wilson, his first printer, whose printing house once stood nearby. Marduk has statues of the Trois Dogs, and in the Ayr Central Shopping Centre there's a statue of Robert Burns and his dog Luath. A much more recent statue of Robert Burns is to be found in New Cumnock. This dates from 2011 and stands on the main street, visible for all the passing traffic. There's also a fine memorial garden to Robert Burns down by the Afton Water, with features such as ploughs and a cairn and so on. Maybole, the old capital of Carrick, has a number of connections with Robert Burns, not in the least that this is where William Burns met Agnes Brown, who would become his wife and therefore the mother of Robert. In 2010, the Community Council had a bust of Robert placed within the town hall. Irvin's statue dates from 1895 by the sculptor James Pittendree McGilvery. This stands on the Irvin Moor in a surprisingly isolated spot, though of course it's close to where the Marymas celebrations take place. The annual ceremony takes place here from the Irvin Burns Club, laying a wreath. An unusual feature of this statue, the facial features of Burns clearly are not taken from those of Alexander Naismith's painting. The Burns Monument at Alloway contains a very unusual bust of Burns. It has a Greco-Roman clothing, with him gazing to one side in a rather unusual expression. It was given by the sculptor Patrick Park, who had attended the original opening of the monument, and seeing that there was an absence of images of Burns, created and presented this. It attracted very much in the way of negative press. Stonehaven lies in the old county of Kincardineshire, very much the home to Burns's ancestors. In the main street, there's a fine garden dedicated Robert Burns, looked after by the local Burns Club. Within it, there's a bust on top of a pedestal of Burns by the local artist Robert Taylor. At the base, there are several faces, images from Burns's poems. At Mauchline in East Ayrshire stands the Burns House Museum, which was one time the home to Robert Burns and to Jean Armour. Within it is a bust dating from 1933, presumably the first bust or statue image of Jean Armour, produced by William Kellogg Brown. The bust has very much an idealised image of Jean Armour, as there are no representations of her in paintings or drawings, etc., as a young woman. Of course, this is very much her home. Her house once stood close to the Burns House Museum. The first full-length statue of Jean Armour was placed in the main street of Mauchline in 2002. The town is still the home to an annual Holy Fair, at which Robert and Jean are commemorated. The full-length statue of Jean Armour and one of her children stands in Dumfries. It was unveiled in 2004 and was commissioned by the Burns House Club. Its aim was to show Jean Armour as she would appear in daily life whilst living at their home nearby in Dumfries. In the gardens at the Burns Monument Centre in Alloway, there's a small building which contains a couple of statues of the self-taught sculptor James Thom. Here is shown at Souter Johnnie. He's also represented by James Thom down at the Souter Johnnie's cottage in Kirkoswald, together with Tam O'Shanter himself and the innkeeper's wife, that is the wife of Souter Johnnie. At Ayrshire, there are statues of Robert Burns together with Highland Mary by the local self-taught sculptor William Campbell. Another particularly fine statue of Highland Mary stands at Dunoon. This was created by the sculptor David Stevenson, none other than the brother of William Grant Stevenson, who created the image of Robert Burns present in the K Park.